Welcome to another episode of
Too Good, Too Bad.
a weekly podcast talking about all things in the worlds of movie, TV, entertainment, and anything really. So we could do TV episodes, for example, like TV series. There could be movies. Just loads of things. It's been a while since the first episode of Too Good Too Bad, which focused on Sean Connery James Bonds, and that's because I've been waiting for the Too Good Too Bad sound, like you just heard at the beginning, and I've been waiting for that for a little while. So it's good to have that sound effect with us now. Beforehand, we were just waiting for that. So, now we've got the Too Good Too Bad sound, hopefully we should be every week. Well, not necessarily every week. I think this podcast is just going to be one whenever I feel like it, I'm going to publish an episode. So, there's a lot of things I want to do. I think I'm going to go, weekly at the moment, to be honest. And, you know, I've also come to the decision on the Miss Luceman YouTube account to focus purely on Doctor Who for my YouTube account, and then for any movie reviews or TV show reviews, I'm going to do them on Too Good Too Bad, with a Too Good Too Bad and then a brief review of it. So, I said this episode would be focusing on Infinity War in last time's episode. However, I sort of lied, because it's not going to be a Too Good Too Bad on Infinity War. It's going to be a Too Good Too Bad on the MCU in general, because I've already done a review of Infinity War. I've already talked about all of the positives and negatives and milked them out. There's no point doing another video on that, is there? Or even podcast, really. And I'm also without D-Cool this week because, well, most weeks I will be without D-Cool because this is sort of my solo podcast. You can also check out our normal podcast. Me and D-Cool do a weekly Doctor Who podcast, usually releasing on Saturday, which is at Podomatic at Doctor Who Time and Space. And you can just look at our Miss Luceman YouTube account for more videos from me. Sometimes D-Cool pops in, but mainly me. So, without further ado, let's talk about
Too Good, Too Bad.
So Too Good Too Bad is an item on our Doctor Time and Space podcast where we discuss two good things on any given subject, in this case the MCU, and two bad things on any given subject, in this case the MCU, because some things are too good and some things are too bad. So, Too Good, Too Bad today is focusing on movies rather than things about the movie. I think, when I'm doing, movie reviews or whole TV series, movie reviews, I'm going to focus on, the whole, lots of movies, and then, there's also going to be some, which are movie reviews that I go to see. Usually there'll be, new cinematic films, some films that have been released recently, so I think I might go and see Solo in a couple of weeks' time, so I'll do one on that, and you know, all the new films, and films that I find interesting to discuss. I might do one on 2001 A Space Odyssey, to be honest. I think that'd be quite interesting. So, without further ado, let's go on to Too Good, Too Bad for today. So my too good would have to be, I'm going to say the Guardians of the Galaxies. So, I'm going to say the Guardians of the Galaxies, a bit of a cheat code there. I prefer the second Guardians very slightly, they're very good. Probably the first Guardians better, but I found the second one more enjoyable. It also added a lot more to the characters and the plots, and it was much more interesting, I thought, and much more fun and exciting, and added everything that we love from the first one to the second one. There's the Guardians films are just so fun and lovable and enjoyable, and I'm just putting them together because it would be a bit of a boring Too Good Too Bad if I just chose Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, because that'd just be like, I'd just be repeating myself a bit, and there's other good films in the MCU as well. I love the Guardians team. All apart from Gamora. I find Gamora slightly irritating, to be honest. In all her films, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of her as a character, and I think she gets in the way of the humour sometimes. But they might be an unpopular opinion. But I really like the addition of Mantis to the team in the second Guardians. There's Groot and Rocket, who are the best characters in the Guardians, in my opinion, or they're at least the most fun ones, or Rocket is. And it's just so funny and exciting and thrilling, and it's so great. It's a really good... they're really good movies to sit down and watch, and I think they're my favourites of the MCU. Then I would say my second Too Good would have to be Avengers Infinity War, I think. Now, as I said, I chose not to do a Too Good Too Bad on Avengers Infinity War just for the MCU in general so far. There's a lot more films to come, but Avengers Infinity War really raised the stakes, and it's probably my third favourite MCU movie. It had lots of the humour, but I think that's mainly because the Guardians were featured in it. And all of my top 3 movies do feature the Guardians, which shows who my favourite characters are in the MCU. It's just got some really exciting and punching the air moments, and while it's got some shocking and gripping moments, most of which you don't see coming. It's just a really great thrill ride. It's fantastic, and if you haven't seen it yet, obviously I don't want to share spoilers, and that's partly the reason why I didn't do a Too Good Too Bad, but there's not much bad about this movie. There's a few iffy things about it, but I discussed those on my YouTube review, so if you want to find out what I liked and what I didn't like about Avengers Infinity War, then go to my YouTube account at Ms. Loose Moon, which you're probably watching this on, well, you are watching this on, and look at the Avengers Infinity War review, and I also share my top 5 MCU movies in there. Honourable mentions, I would say, would have to go to Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther. They're the other films that I think would fit into my top 5 MCU movies, because they just showcase some interesting stuff. They're very different. Thor Ragnarok is very funny, and Taika Waititi directed it really fantastically, while Black Panther is really diverse and wonderful, and just it's got a really good feel to it, a really nice sort of tone to it as well. On to my bads then. I'm going to say for the first one, it isn't necessarily a bad one. Now, just to say, I haven't watched every single one of the MCU movies, so these movies are probably good compared to some of the others. Like, the reason I haven't watched the first Captain America film, and I haven't watched The Incredible Hulk, I haven't watched the Thor film, the Thor films apart from the Thor films up to Ragnarok. So there's a few films that I haven't included in the bad, which are probably much worse than the ones I'm including. So I'm going to include Ant-Man because it was good-ish. It was enjoyable enough. I just think it was throwaway. It was the average film. It was just so throwaway, so dispensable. The sequel has the potential to be better. It's fun, this movie. I quite liked it in some respects. I think it's one of the weakest additions of the MCU, to be honest, and one of the most forgettable ones. Ant-Man himself is played quite well by Paul Rudd, and it's got some really nice and fun moments in there, and it's a good watch for most people, but it just wasn't the one for me, really. There's been some much better movies in the MCU. I'm not overly pumped for the sequel, to be honest. Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's coming out later this year. Very likely I'll go and watch it, though, because I think the MCU movies are all very good to watch in the cinema, I think. So I'll go and watch that when it comes out in August, because it comes out a month later here than it does in the US and places like that. So maybe those post-credit scenes I'm thinking are going to link into Infinity War somehow. Hawkeye might be in the movie or in the post-credit scenes at some point, and, you know, that's going to be really exciting. But, all in all, Ant-Man is one of my Too Good, Too Bads. The second Too Bad is one that I think had a lot of flaws in it, and one that's, I think, garnished mixed reviews in many respects, because a lot of people say it's a good MCU movie and it's very creative, and I'm not doubting it's creative, because I'm saying that most of the movies in the MCU are actually very creative. I'm going to say the Doctor Strange movie. So Doctor Strange it's okay, and it looks fantastic. It looks brilliant, and it's really creatively done in that respect. However, it's just a bit weak. The story is just awful. There's not really any story. I think it's got a weak sort of villain and stuffs. Dormammu, was it, or something? I think it's got some good things in it. Tilda Swinton's in it, isn't she? And it's got some good parts, some nice parts, but I'm not a big fan of it, and it's nowhere near up to the quality of the Too Goods that I chose, or any of the honourable mentions in Too Good. So, I am going to end Too Good, Too Bad there. There's quite a few good MCU movies, quite a lot of good MCU movies. There's some very good ones. There's stuff like, the Captain America Civil War film was really good, and The Avengers is really good, and Spider-Man Homecoming was quite good, and it's the MCU. It's a mixed bag of stuffs, I think. Some of it appeals to me, some of it doesn't, and you can tell that what the ones that don't appeal to me are, and those are the ones that are often acclaimed as the weaker ones, which is the first Captain America film, The Incredible Hulk, and the first two Thor films. So I've sort of stayed away from them. But, you know, leave your comments down below whether you'd recommend for me to watch those ones, because there's a few MCU movies I desperately need to watch, and I will at some point. But without further ado, let's go into the next section of the show, which is 2VU. 2VU is the part of the show where we compare the films, or one of the films that we're talking about today, to another film which relates to it slightly, but isn't quite that. So, I'm going to pick the Guardians of the Galaxy today, and I'm going to compare it to Wonder Woman, which Wonder Woman was the first film, not the first film, it was sort of a very popular film from 2017, and it was meant to be really popular. I didn't see its success, to be honest. I wasn't a big fan of the movie. So, I thought it would be an interesting one to compare to Guardians of the Galaxy. They're two extremely different films. Extremely different. And it's so noticeable because, you know, Guardians is such a fun romp, and that's sort of quite serious. I think the DCU sort of failed compared to the MCU, and I don't really I lack interest in the DC EU. The MCU's quite interesting. It's got a lot of backstory and it's developed, and they didn't go straight into a big crossover event like DC did. But all in all, I would have to say Guardians of the Galaxy is much, 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 much better than the Wonder Woman. So that's 2 for you today. Guardians of the Galaxy has won against Wonder Woman. So that's it for the show today. We'd love to know your feedback on the show, how you think we could improve Too Good Too Bad. Because maybe you want there to be a new section or something. Maybe 2 for you doesn't work out, or maybe you have a suggestion for a Too Good Too Bad that you want us to do in the future, or at least the near future. I said earlier on it would be quite interesting to do a 2001 A Space Odyssey 1, so you know what, I'm gonna do a 2001 A Space Odyssey 1. That's gonna be next week. What movie do you think I should compare 2001 A Space Odyssey to? I don't know, but I'm going to think of one to compare it to later on. Or you can think of one, to be honest. But it might not be one I've seen, because I think it's the only Kubrick film I've seen to my recollection at the moment. But maybe some more in the future. Anyway, thank you for listening today. I will be back once again next week for 2001 A Space Odyssey. But please leave your feedback in the comments below, and it's been very nice to be joined for you. I will see you next time, same space, and remember to look at Podomatic at Doctor Time and Space for more episodes of Doctor Time and Space. Thank you, goodbye.